From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Dustin visits with Growth Energy CEO Emily Skor about year-round E15. I have the latest U.S. export sales with Greg McBride of Allendale, and Mark tunes in to Senator Chuck Grassley's weekly Ag Conference call. Now let's welcome in our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Welcome into the Friday edition of Iowa Ag Matters. And Dustin, this is the stretch that we've kind of been waiting for as it comes to the weather. As we're going to warm up, it's going to be some nice days here. It looks like we might even stack a few nice days in a row. And that's really going to help with our planning progress as everything continues throughout the Midwest and especially here in the state of Iowa, of course. And as we know, once that weather period opens up, things can happen quickly as it relates to planting, and that's what we're going to be watching here over the next few days.
Yeah, that we will. It's going to be interesting. I mean, we got a little rain yesterday, not really amounting to much to slow things down, and you get that warmer weather in there that is going to hopefully accelerate some of the planting and hopefully even get it across the final stretch as we get closer to the end. Because, as we said, it doesn't take long to get the crop into the ground. The marathon really is always in the fall. But of course, we had some, earlier plantings that had some emergence, and we did have some cold nights in there. And so it's going to be interesting to see how much replanting needs to be done in some of those cases, and any damage that could have been done to those crops. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm expecting to see some big percentage increases when the weekly crop progress report comes out on Monday.
And as we know, in recent years, especially as it relates to the soybean side, we've been going earlier and earlier with planning, really almost trying to test those limits and push those boundaries of what's possible with the early planting. And this could be, maybe I'm way off base here, but it seems like with our back and forth weather, the rain that we've had, this could be one of those real tests to see exactly how well those early planted crops do when they're faced with some of these weather challenges we've seen this year.
Yeah, that we have. It's the shift from La Nina to El Nino has made things, or as it shifts, it's made things a lot more difficult and to figure out. And we've seen that soybeans perform better earlier planted than corn does. It seems to be a little more hardy in that situation. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. This was not a spring like we've had the last couple, where the temperature just kind of seemed to gradually move where it needed to be. This has been very back and forth here as the weather patterns are shifting, as we started hearing about yesterday with Brad Rippey of USDA. We're going to definitely see some shifts this year, and some of the shifts may not be that great as we catch up with him later on early next week again.
And I know I was talking with someone that's trying to plant some grass seed right now here in Des Moines, and kind of frustrated that it didn't seem to really be taking off like they had hoped. And we were kind of thinking out loud, well, maybe it's just been a little bit too cool. Maybe that soil is still just a little bit too cool. Need to have some warmer days to get that grass headed in the right direction and take hold.
Yeah, that's going to be the case. And how much of the moisture got into the subsoil and how much is still in the topsoil. And that's all going to remain to be seen. But again, Mother Nature knows she seems to know what she's doing, let's hope. And we'll just have to play it by ear. Well, let's go ahead and get to those grains with Matt Bennett of agmarket.net talking with Mark Magnuson.
Joined today by Matt Bennett of agmarket.net for our opening market discussion. Matt, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Corn's awful quiet. It's no more than half a cent from unchanged right now, whereas soybeans are up a little bit, bouncing a little after they got beat up a little, this week. And wheat's really quiet as well. So to be honest with you, not a whole lot going on just yet.
So does that point to the oil price? Has the oil price settled a little bit, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. So you see oil trading around $94 there on the June. Just 5-6 sessions ago, we were at 110.93, and then a couple of days ago, we plummeted, to 88.66. So, we're trading well off the weekly low. It looks like the oil market's trying to kind of settle in here. Obviously, we talked about, hey, there might be some sort of a peace deal in order, but then, that definitely kind of went to the wayside yesterday. And oil was able to kind of bounce second day in a row. It bounced off of quite a bit lower prices and actually bounced off the 50-day moving average each time. It kind of caught hold where it needed to. So I think with oil stabilizing, if you will, for the time being, it's done, a little bit more of a stabilizing impact, on several of our other items here. So, you look at corn, for instance, and both July corn and D's corn yesterday went down and tested support and actually closed, well off of some of the support levels that, we were worried about. But, you look at July corn, for instance, and, July corn, 50-day moving average and the 20-day moving average is right here about where the market's at, 466.5, and we're trading at 468. It looks like the markets have found buying where they needed to. I got to think that's got a fair amount to do with crude oil finding some support as well.
Something we've been discussing in the office quite a bit this week is the fact that this peace situation, the peace talks with Iran, hopefully getting to a conclusion of that conflict, it really does show how globalized world trade and ag trade has become. Because, of course, you have China exerting some influence in this as well. China has interest in trade in the Middle East, and we know that President Trump has that meeting coming up with China soon.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot at play there. China gets a ton of their energy from Iran directly, so there's no doubt they've got a vested interest there. At the same time, of course, they do more commerce with the U.S. as far as selling goods than what they do with anyone else in the world. So, everyone's kind of tiptoeing, trying to figure out what's going to work out best for everyone. No doubt, though, we've disrupted the heck out of a whole lot of situations, whether we're talking fertilizer, which will impact farmers, I'm afraid, for quite some time, to energy. And, I'm sure, Mark, you filled up at the pump lately. It's not a pleasant experience whatsoever. My wife, let me take her car the other night, Mark, and you know what the deal was. She was out of gas and $120 bill to fill her car up, pretty rough deal. But what are we going to see moving forward? I think you get more. I think you get a better relief on energy prices than what you will on fertilizer prices quicker, which, in my opinion, is problematic for the grower moving ahead.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Back on Iowa Ag Matters, and Senator Chuck Grassley held his weekly conference call with ag journalists and talked a little bit about his 99-county tour that's going on right now and more about the concerns over the investigation into the big four meat packers, especially in the beef industry.
This week, during my 99-county meetings, and by the way, I've been in 50 counties this year so far, I held Q&A with Jefferson County Farm Bureau members, where concentration in the beef processing market was a topic of conversation. And let me say that Iowans aren't the only ones concerned about livestock consolidation. Thank God the Department of Justice is now investigating the big four meat packers. We also have Agriculture Secretary Rollins making a point to remind Americans that the big four make up 85% of the entire beef market slaughtering. And I'm glad to see that President Trump and his administration prioritize this very important issue, which affects Iowa cattlemen throughout the entire cattle cycle, regardless of the states of the market. In Congress, I'm pushing for legislation to increase transparency and competition through livestock markets with these pieces of legislation I'm going to name: the Livestock Consolidation Research Act, the New Markets for State Inspected Meat and Poultry Act, and thirdly, the Meat and Poultry Special Investigators Act. That Special Investigators Act, I think last year I kind of spoke of that as a ag ombudsman within the Department of Agriculture. Now we have Senator Boozman continuing to work very hard to put together a farm bill here in the Senate and I'll be working to ensure that these critical bills and other priorities are included. And, the House of Representatives passed the 5-year ag bill last Friday. And I think I've told you so many times, and I haven't changed my view, that we're probably going to have to work off of the House bill because of the inability of getting Democrat support to get the ag bill out of the Senate Ag Committee. And that's because they want us to undo the anti-fraud provisions that we put in the tax bill of last year. And we can't allow states that have 20% fraud to continue to waste the taxpayers' money that way. And it's not going to make it any easier to get the House bill up in the Senate, but I don't think that Boozman feels he's got much chance of getting a bipartisan bill out of the Senate Ag Committee. No, maybe he's accomplished more than what he told me a couple weeks ago, but that's where I think we are.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
In rural Iowa, you need reliable information. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network brings you ag-specific content like market trends, weather outlooks, and policy updates that matter to your operation, while your local station brings you community news and consistent updates on what is happening in your area. It's a partnership built for the challenges of rural life. Your farm, your local station, and your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters. Find us online at iowaagnet.com. Time to run down those basis numbers for you here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Friday. I'm Dustin Huffman. Taking a look at cash bids around the state, several elevators making adjustments, most of them improving prices. One or two, though, are lowering their bids. Let's run them down for you. ADM Burlington, a dime under on corn, $4.56. Soybeans, 23 cents under, $11.70. Cargill and Eddyville, 22 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.44. New Co-op Algona, 42 cents under on corn, $4.24. Soybeans, 67 cents under, cash price $11.26. Ag State Sheldon, 25 cents under on corn, $4.41. Soybeans, 70 cents under at $11.23. Ag State Alta, 38 cents under on corn, $4.28. Soybeans, 65 cents under, cash bid $11.28. Cargill Cedar Rapids, 13 cents under on corn, $4.53 for the cash bid. Soybeans, 30 cents under at $11.63. Five Star Co-op Nashua, 35 cents under on corn, $4.31. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $11.23. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, 29 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.37. ADM Des Moines on soybeans, they're 30 cents under with a cash price of $11.63. New Co-op Red Oak, 34 cents under on corn, $4.32. Soybeans, 65 cents under, $11.28. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 53 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.13. Soybeans, 86 cents under at $11.07. New Co-op Sheraton, 33 cents under on corn, $4.33. Soybeans, 65 cents under at $11.28. Walk-On Feed Ranch, 47 cents under on corn, $4.19. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $11.23. New Co-op Glidden, 41 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.25. Soybeans, 65 cents under, $11.28. Innovative Ag Farley, 47 cents under on corn, $4.19. Soybeans, 71 cents under, $11.22. And Cargill Muscatine, 22 cents under on corn, $4.44. Soybeans, 32 cents under, cash bid $11.61. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. With this check of your basis report on Iowa Ag Matters, I'm Dustin Huffman. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Stay informed with the closing market report from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your essential summary of the day's market activities and their impact on the agricultural economy. Join us for timely updates and expert commentary on commodity prices and market trends with trusted ag market analysts from around the Midwest. Tune in every Monday through Friday on your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate for your daily market recap and insights to stay ahead in the ag economy.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters, and it is time now for a conversation about a topic that is of utmost importance right now, and that is the upcoming E15 vote in the House. Dustin Huffman will discuss things with Emily Skor of Growth Energy. She is the CEO, and of course, if it makes its way through the House, still has to get through the Senate, but it is the best chance that we've had to see E15 legislation get through in some time. Here's Dustin with more.
All right, got to talk to you a little bit between the scenes at Washington last week when I was with you, and we talked a little bit about what we were hoping to see with the Farm Bill going through and with E15 being attached. Now we're 10 days away from that, and things look a lot different than they did when we talked last.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, there's a tremendous amount of activity, and I won't relive all of that. I will say where we are right now, we have our E15 bill is going to be voted on next week in the House. We have a tremendous amount of very good momentum. We've got a broad coalition of support. We've got farmers, ethanol producers, fuel retailers, the vast majority of oil refiners. We all support this bill that was introduced a week or two ago. And so, our message to Congress is simple: don't delay. Americans want action. And I'm optimistic. I am optimistic that we have the bipartisan votes to get this done.
And we know it got decoupled from the Farm Bill, and that's, for be that as it may, they're finally getting a chance to have it on the floor, because I know there was concern when we talked a year ago in Washington about the fact, was it enough of a big enough issue to get its own standalone bill? Well, now it has one, and now is its chance.
You're right. We have very strong bipartisan support for this bill because it is essential for the farm economy, and also because gas prices are so top of mind right now. Gas prices are at their highest level in 4 years, and families need relief. There's a tremendous amount of pressure on lawmakers to do something and provide that relief. The president wants lower prices, Congress wants lower prices, and as you know, E15 gets us there.
And of course, it's not just the low prices at the pump, while that is a big driver, but it also does a lot for our supply of corn that we have sitting on hand right now. It gives us some certainty both for the producers and for the processors.
Well, what is so important is that we continue to demonstrate and educate lawmakers that we have such capacity of corn in the country right now. If everybody drove on E15, that's an additional 2.4 billion bushel of corn grind. We all know that we've got a corn surplus. We had a record crop. And so we've got to find U.S. markets for U.S. commodities. E15 is kind of the ready solution. And there's been a very strong chorus of voices from our farming community with us saying, this is what we want. Give us markets, not handouts.
And, we've got 8 Midwestern states that already have it year round, so it's not a problem for us in Iowa. But, you have states like California or Texas or wherever that maybe want to see more demand for it, or see we have the demand for it. Getting this year round across obviously allows these retailers to be able to now invest in the proper equipment they need to have E15 available.
Well, and this is where the retailers have been very clear. You've got about 5,000 stations that offer E15 right now. But you have well over 100,000 gas stations across the country. E15 is legal in all 50 states. But what is holding retailers back from investing in offering this fuel choice is the uncertainty. They have to wait every spring. Do I have a waiver? Is the government going to allow me to sell this in the summer? And so they're not going to invest until they have that certainty. So I think we really unleash the potential of E15 when we get this year-round E15 solution. And I'm going to add, too, this summer alone, E15 is projected to save American drivers more than $150 million at the pump. And that's just at the stations where they're currently offering it. Imagine if you extrapolate that to every gas station across the country. That is a real savings at a time when people desperately need that.
And, we also, the heartbeat, the pulse of Washington better than I do a lot of times, Emily. And, the House is one hurdle. The president said he's committed to signing it if it gets to his desk. But what about the Senate? What do you think the climate is there for an E15 bill standalone?
At this point, we're kind of taking it one step at a time. And so certainly, when this passes the House, that puts additional pressure on the Senate to take action. So we have slightly different dynamics in the Senate. You have a slightly different kind of opposition that we're going to have to contend with. But I do believe that if the House votes on E15 as a standalone bill and supports that, again, it puts the pressure on the Senate to have to do something. And given geopolitics, I think, and as we get closer and closer to the midterms, I think the urgency of the need to do something for the American farmer, to do something for the American driver, that's not going to go away. And I think that hopefully should be helpful to our cause.
All right. Well, Emily, I know you guys are very busy at trying to get the message across to members of Congress and bringing people in to help talk about this, tell their stories about it as well. What can the average farmer be doing here in this next week to help get their congressional people, on board, making sure they're helping do everything they can?
And that is my ask. We do have to make our voices heard. Go to growthenergy.org/E15 now. Your legislators need to hear from you. They need to hear from you how critically important this is so that they will follow through and overcome a little bit of opposition from some of their colleagues. So yes, lend your voice.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Well, Dustin, we know that fertilizer prices have climbed sharply following the conflict in Iran, but by how much? Well, according to the University of Illinois, price for anhydrous ammonia jumped from an average of $828 per ton before the conflict to $1,123 per ton by mid-April. Prices for 28% nitrogen solution also surged by 25% during the same period. So even if we get to the conclusion of this conflict, there's still going to be a long runway where this takes some time to bring that price back down.
Yeah, that there is. And of course, the question is, will it come back down? We've seen this happen before in other groups, other commodities and other things where the price goes up in a certain situation, but when that problem goes away, the prices stay where they're at. And of course, the fertilizer industry is probably going to be watching what happens out of this cattle industry with the big four meat packers because the eyes might be turning to them next. We'll have to see. More Iowa Ag Matters in a moment.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson. Joined at midday by Joe Camp of Comstock. Joe, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Green for the grains, we've got leadership from the soybeans rallying, in part some positive anticipation for next week and the meeting with China. President Trump and Xi Jinping hashing out details of a trade agreement and likely addressing soybean purchases. There are expectations that we could see some Chinese purchases in the lead up of that event. So we're thinking about what's happening next week. At the end of the week is when that meeting will take place. Before that, on Tuesday, we've got a crop report. Before then, we've got a weekend ahead where anything can pop up as well. But for now, we've got a firmer grain market here on Friday morning.
And I know this is a tough question to ask you, Joe, but do we have anything definitive that they are going to discuss soybeans here in the lead up to the meeting and at the meeting, or is it more wishful thinking from the market side?
A bit of both. There's no explicit mentioning of soybeans just yet, but there is a history of comments now from particularly the U.S. Trade Representative Jamison Greer that agricultural purchases are still concurrently being discussed. And so you'd think that would address soybeans, but in the past as well, there have been these phrasings that say non-soybean products. And so will they, won't they have an announcement immediately following that meeting that brings up soybeans? It's a big unanswered question that we've got now a week to go on before we learn more.
On the livestock side of the trade, have cattle clawed their way back from some tough days in terms of price movement this week?
They did at times this week. It looked like the board had corrected lower than the cash wanted to follow. But then we still see, like in today's action, this firmer start that ultimately has, at least for now, reversed into red for cattle futures. And so it's a continued momentum failure potentially. A lot of focus on the speculative positioning and how they're looking at the chart action and maybe seeing some decoupling for now from the maybe more friendly fundamentals of the cash trade. So it's going to be an important finish and another possible answer of the question if cattle futures have put in a short-term top.
Farmers, stay on top of your local market with Basis Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Every day, we bring you the latest corn and soybean cash prices from inland grain elevators and river terminals across Iowa. Get the prices you need to make the best-selling decisions, no matter where you are in the state. Basis Matters connects you to the numbers that matter most to your farm. Tune in every weekday only on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network and make informed grain marketing decisions with Basis Matters.
July corn up 3 1/4 at $4.70 3/4. December corn up 3 3/4 at $4.93 1/4. July soybeans up 14 1/4 at $12.06 1/2. November soybeans up 14 1/4 at $11.87 3/4. July soybean meal up $1.30 at $3.20 On the Merc, June live cattle down 18 cents at $249.88. May feeder cattle down 65 cents at $365.68. June lean hogs at $99.13 down 25. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Boy, the cattle market has been interesting this week. While still on a pretty well positive note, the back and forth we've seen this week has been interesting, and the hog markets quietly just performing behind them. And we're going to get more information now from Matt Bennett of agmarket.net as he rejoins Mark Magnuson to talk livestock.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade today?
You know, yesterday we kind of got beat up a little bit. I think part of that was due to a lot of fear that the U.S. was going to potentially allow more Brazilian beef to come in, but you come in here today, that did not materialize. You come in here today, and we basically gotten back what we lost yesterday, So yesterday, you closed this cattle market down. On most contracts, you lost a fair amount of ground, $2 to $3.50. Whereas on front month, I think we lost $3.40 yesterday. June, we're up 2.5 today. So I haven't gotten it all back, but definitely a little bit firmer tone here. No doubt that the fundamentals haven't changed. It's just a lot of people are fearful, if you will, that you could rectify a lot of the fundamental situation in the U.S. if you allow some of these imports to come in without as many restrictions, as what we've seen in the last few years.
So in the simplest terms, Matt, in that price tumble in just recent days, was that essentially the price just got too high?
You've got to assume so. I mean, whenever I look at, for instance, June cattle, your front month, we went up and made new highs. Highest print that we've seen was, 256.62. That's just one heck of a high price for fats. And what have you done? You've just kind of, moderated trade a little bit over these last few days. It looks like more of a sideways to lower type tone, but, there's no doubt that whenever you look at cash prices, some of these markets have just absolutely been on fire. We hauled a few this week and pleasantly surprised with what we got. I could say that much, but it's just crazy what some of these prices are. You're entering into, grilling season. I don't think you're going to impact demand negatively anytime soon.
Matt Bennett of agmarket.net. Head to agmarket.net for all of the marketing information and resources and to get in touch with the team. Matt, thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Yep, same to you, bud.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
$400 bill on that full day
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters. It is time now for the Export Sales Report with Greg McBride of Allendale. And we'll find out the information in this week's report and whether or not we're going to see any changes in the upcoming WASDE report as well. Here's Riley with more.
On the phone right now with Greg McBride of Allendale for the weekly U.S. Export Sales Report. And Greg, what do we see in the latest numbers from the USDA?
Yeah, this is 6 weeks of very strong corn exports, 1.361 million tons. Old crop sales, 123,000 tons of new crop sales. On the bean side of things, we're striking out, down again under the range of estimates, sitting at 141,000 tons of old crop sales and just over 5,000 tons of new crop sales. So a very kind of hit or miss. It seems to be always a hit for corn and a miss for the beans.
And when we look, you've mentioned that we've been seeing this trend for a while of those sales. When we think about this time of year, first off, is that what we normally see? Kind of stronger corn, weaker beans, and then also, what do we need to see from that? Because I know we have also talked recently about needing to see those corn sales in order to be able to meet maybe some ending stocks.
Yeah, we're going in the direction of probably needing to see the USDA make some adjustments to their export demand number on either this WASDE report that's coming out on Tuesday or maybe the one in June. That adjustment higher would help to lower ending stocks. But for right now, there are going to be some thoughts about maybe missing on the ethanol side of things, but the corn export demand has been phenomenal and needs to stay that way. We've talked about it in our South American update, how there could be some adjustments to production coming, maybe not necessarily on this report, but on the June report when it comes to Brazil's overall production, and with the push that they have towards ethanol, cuts to production tighten their ending stocks significantly, which gives us a little bit more of a window with the cheaper corn to be able to continue to sell and maybe even pick up an additional 50 million bushels of corn sales here or there.
And when we see a period like this where there's not really much to move the export numbers either way, it's been a lot of just the same thing every week. For people who are kind of keeping an eye on this when it comes to their marketing decisions, are there other areas they should be looking at? I mean, obviously we've got the Strait of Hormuz and all that. Other areas they should be looking at to kind of make their marketing decisions?
Well, I think the big one coming up is going to be President Trump going to Beijing to speak with President Xi. We know that conversation has, in the past, always revolved around soybeans, more soybeans. But it does sound like, even though that is going to be the focal point, it does sound like they're more willing to buy additional U.S. agricultural products that are not soybeans from us, whether that means corn, sorghum, pork, or beef. So that'll be something to watch as they have their meeting on the 15th and 16th of this month. So next Friday and Saturday.
All right, Greg, lots of great information today. For anybody who would like to get in touch for more marketing information, how can they do that?
Give us a call, 800-2-MARKET. That's 800-262-7538.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Well, Dustin, we've talked a lot about the meatpacking industry and anti-competitive practices. And USDA trade data said Brazilian beef exports to the U.S. reached $795 million in the first quarter this year, up 21% from last year. At the same time, total U.S. beef imports climbed 28%, while domestic beef exports declined. So they're really looking into things right now as it relates to the beef industry and those high prices we're seeing in the store, and whether or not it is truly down to just market influences.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting look at this. But, like I said yesterday, too, you look back at 100 years ago, 100 plus years ago, when we had 6 meat packers and they declared that a monopoly. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and how times may have changed. We'll have to find out. More Iowa Ag Matters in a moment.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Well, that's going to put the wraps on another week here of Iowa Ag Matters. And, of course, you can find all the content online at iowaagnet.com. Thanks to Mark. Thanks to Riley. And, of course, thanks to you for listening. We'll see you here on Monday on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.